My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, AKA the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua. Hi, welcome to Exit Team Nashua. My name is Jasmine, and I am your host. Exit Team takes people with real-life experience with addiction, and we bring it right into your living room. I can't talk today.
Wow. you can't talk anytime. It's cool, don't worry.
Thank you.
Everybody's stretching.
As usual, Bobby's here to make the show a great time.
I try.
Thank you, Bobby.
I try.
You know.
You gotta bring some life to it.
Yeah. Hi, Justin.
Hi, Justin.
For those of you watching, so Justin is a dear friend of mine, and you know, someone that I also work with, you know, in the trenches. But so here on Exit Team, we take people who have experience with addiction, whether it be their personal experience, a loved one's experience, or anything like that. And we bring them on the show to share their experience, strength, and hope, and also offer resources and help for anyone who's watching. So the show's literally yours. It's all about you. We can talk about your experience. We can talk about your work. We can talk about whatever it is that you want. But before we dive into that, I would like for you to tell us how you qualify to be on the show.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jasmine, for having me. It's definitely cool to be here. Don't tell me it's all about me, though. That's never good.
Yeah.
It's all about you. Don't worry. Just self-will run riot and tell me how it works.
If we don't make it about you, it's going to be about Bobby. So
That's true.
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen.
So,
We're just giving the people what they want. It's okay. It's okay.
okay.
so my name is Justin Reynolds. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I got sober November 10th of 2013. So it's a little over 5 years now. Heroin addict, cocaine addict, alcoholic, anything you put in front of me. I've also been working in the drug and alcohol treatment field since I was about 9 months sober. So.
Wow.
So a bit of experience doing that. So, yeah, I think that would definitely qualify me to get this
As a
seat.
person who works in treatment, like, not for yourself personally, but for people who are seeking treatment, what is one of the biggest struggles that you see?
For someone seeking treatment, I mean, it's the whole process. I know I was actually thinking about this today, just even going back to when I was first seeking treatment. What a chaotic process that was and can be for my family, for myself. Because like when I'm kind of at that place where I'm thinking about, like, yeah, maybe I should stop doing this. Like my life is pretty awful. Like I don't want to die. But still there's that other piece of me that doesn't want to stop either.
Yeah.
And it's like a very conflicting time for me. And then you throw my family in the mix, who was absolutely tortured by my behavior for years and didn't know what to do with me. And then there was that kind of brief window where I was just like, okay. And it's like, all right, what do you do now? And for me, I'm from Massachusetts, and I was on Mass state insurance at the time, and I would call in places. And at the time, there's quite a few facilities that will take Mass Health, thankfully. But I would call in, and it'd be like, all right, call back in a couple hours. All right, call back tomorrow. All right, call back, it's so easy for me to lose that willingness. Like when I'm actually ready to go in. So like that can be a tough process. And it's cool now that because I work in admissions in the job I'm in now, and part of kind of what I do and like what my team does is like we do our absolute best, no matter whether you're a fit for our facility or your insurance works with our facility, is to help you and guide you through that chaotic process, whether it's work with your family, work with you, and follow through until you get in somewhere.
Help you somewhere no matter what. So For those people watching at home, how can someone contact, because you work in an admissions department for a treatment center, how can someone contact you if they have questions, they need resources, or they have a loved one struggling?
Yeah, you can contact me on my direct line, and that will go right to my office. There's 2 of us that work in the office.
What's the number?
You can call me at 413-854-3972.
Perfect.
And that will reach me. I'll answer that phone. And like me and my team will do our best to guide you and support you through that process, which is cool. We have people that have called in and like we'll check up on them until they find somewhere to go.
That can be very draining sometimes, because I do the same thing. 90% of phone calls that I receive from people, they're homeless, they don't have insurance, and like, what do you say? Oh, I'm sorry, you don't have insurance, I can't help you. Like, no.
Right.
You give them as,
Like,
you make sure they get somewhere.
yeah, I mean, there are times that I'm like driving out places, picking people up, bringing them to the safe stations, calling them every day while they're on waiting lists, like just telling them that I love them.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I feel terrible that I can't provide the resources that someone needs for them. The very least I can do is just call and let them know I care. You know.
And it's amazing to me the amount of people that I've heard that have called in and been like, oh my God, like I can't believe after I said I have Medicaid, you're still talking to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrible.
Because a lot of people just
Yeah.
hang up the phone on them and that's it.
That's horrible. So I believe like the law of the universe is like good feeds good. You know. So with that, good karma's gonna come your way.
Right.
For that.
That's bottom line why we all got into this, right?
Well,
Like I got
us-
into this to help somebody.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just like somebody helped me. You know, like the fact of, you were talking like I didn't know where to go. Like literally the only reason I went to my first treatment center that I did was because the kid I was getting high with had really good results and he went there.
Right.
I'd like you to really think about that. The kid I was actively getting high with told me go to this place because they have really good results. I went there.
Wasn't the results you were looking for, was it?
No, it was like, but in my head I'm like, well, that makes sense.
You
Totally
get there,
go
like,
there.
what is this?
Oh, it was beautiful. It was a nice place down in Florida. But no, it was the
No,
like,
hey, hold on. Let's back it up. Not to like say Florida treatment's bad. Florida has some good treatment centers.
no, I'm saying it was beautiful.
Okay.
It was in Florida. Like it wasn't like a demic. You know what I
Right.
mean? It was a nice place. Well,
Keep moving.
moving on. Back to you.
So you talked about how you put your family through so much. So we actually do have a lot of family members that watch the show, and we have family members all the time that send in questions. We have family members that reach out for help. We have a Facebook page called I'm a Heroin Addict, and our instant messenger is going off all the time with family members of loved ones. Not the actual, I mean, people with substance use disorder do reach out, but a lot of times it's family members. So like, what did that experience from your perspective look like for your family, and what was the best thing that your family did to help you?
I mean, the kind of how it worked for me was
How it works?
I was on my way, like at the end there, I was on my way to pick up. I ended up getting stopped in my grandmother's car impounded. And,
That's such a great story.
and this
I want to see where this goes.
this state
Hold on,
trooper,
what kind of car was it?
Ford Taurus.
Okay.
I think it's second or third time I've gotten that car impounded.
I was
on
picturing
it.
like a Buick, so a Ford Taurus is a little bit better. Okay.
poor grandma.
Thank you, Grandma. I love you. And so the state cop kind of intervened, and he came to the scene, and he ended up actually being very kind to me, and took a little bit extra time than he usually that most law enforcement usually did with me. And he offered to give me a ride back to my parents' house, and then he talked to my family, and like because I didn't want to, and it was like that brief moment where like I didn't know if I wanted to be sober or what I wanted, but I didn't want to keep living like I was living,
Right.
No.
and I was deathly afraid to pursue sobriety, and because I get so uncomfortable when I'm sober. And he talked to my parents, and my mother basically said, and my father said, that this is it. You either go to treatment or like we're done.
So they gave you that ultimatum.
We're done. And like they had been enabled me, of course, and they went through their process. And like the best thing they did was get educated about the disease, and they had people.
How did they do that?
So they went to, there was a bunch of like family programs and I'm a guy who went to multiple treatment centers, and
Hey.
and so they kind of started getting educated, and different family support groups. My parents are involved in Learn to Cope in Massachusetts. That's been huge for them.
So almost every guest that we have brought on the show, and when we talk about resources for family, Learn to Cope
Learn to
comes
Cope
up.
is an amazing,
Yeah.
amazing organization, and it's helped my parents a ton. My parents are actually facilitators of a meeting now, which is
Stop.
good.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
Justin.
yeah, it's cool.
Look at everything you went through, how resourceful it is to help others. Like now your family, not only do they get their own healing, but now they get to help other families have their healing.
Right, and I remember like talking to my mom when she was first doing it, and she was explaining like this feeling that she gets from helping the other families, and I'm like, wow, like that's the same feeling I get when I'm helping another alcoholic or an addict. Like that's just that good feeling. And so like we were relating and connecting on that level, which was cool. So they said like that's it, like we'll support you if you're getting well,
Yeah.
and if not, and it took a lot of coaching from a lot of people. And I went to detox, tried to leave detox, ended up staying, and then came up to New Hampshire for treatment. Actually, the guy who's going to be on next is the guy who got me into treatment up in New Hampshire, and coached my family a lot on kind of what to do.
We'll have to drill him on resources.
And they held the boundary, and I would call every day for the first month or two, like, I need to get out of here. This place is awful. They're doing this, and I just lie, you know.
They're hitting me. They're not feeding me.
And
That's
like,
so great.
and I tell families that I work with now, like, I would say whatever I thought I could say to get like an emotional reaction out of my parents.
Yeah.
Because, like, when I get sober, I get uncomfortable if I'm not working some kind of recovery program. And I just couldn't stand sitting in my own skin. But they held that boundary, and it was getting close to winter, and I don't do well outside in the winter. So I stayed, and I worked a program of recovery begrudgingly. Like, I wasn't one of those guys who was like really gung-ho about recovery.
It's weird. It's almost like you were trudging the road to
Right.
happy dust.
And it worked.
So weird.
And it worked. And I'm very grateful to my mother and father and my whole family that kind of had my back in that sense. I wasn't happy at first. You know, I said some awful things to them at first, but like, I'm grateful that they held that line. Because if not, I don't know if I would be here.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. You had, hold on, what did you say? You had talked about, oh shoot, I can't remember. It was something to do. Anyways, okay, let's just keep moving on. So your family held a really strong boundary with you. You came up to New Hampshire. How did you find that, like, you wanted to work in treatment?
At first, I didn't at all. Like, I didn't really.
Because you started working in treatment at 9 months, you said,
Yeah, it was
which,
about-
which is like, for some people, they think that's pretty early.
Pretty early, yeah.
I started working in treatment at 4 months, and people were like, people around me were freaking out. They were like, this treatment center is going to kill you. And it ended up, for me, I would never recommend ever that anybody start working in treatment at 4 months, by the way,
Yeah.
but for me, it was exactly what I had needed. So,
I think I was like a year and a couple months when I started working in treatment.
yeah.
Because I was totally like, I'm not going to work in treatment. I'm going to keep my recovery and work separate. And I didn't realize that I could do that while working in treatment.
Right.
It's
You
hard.
know, it is,
is
but
hard.
before I was laying floors. So
Yeah,
I was just like, I can't really bring work. You know what I mean? I can't make flooring my recovery.
Right.
You know, but I don't know, something happened. I wanted to get somebody in treatment. It was hard, and then I realized I wanted to do that. So
Right. Yeah, it was weird because like, and like I never expected to work at the place I got sober either, and it's just like a bunch of my friends kind of started doing it,
Yeah.
and then like my roommates, and they would come home after work and they'd just be like talking about the day and whatever, and like I couldn't relate, and I was like, no, I'll do it, whatever. So I threw in an app. I'm like, they'll never hire me probably because I was a pain in the neck when I was in treatment. Like, I'm not a great client when I'm in treatment. I'm awful.
That's so weird.
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
know
and
you, and that's like not you.
yeah, I'm
weird.
a
I don't
pain.
see you not being compliant.
Oh, Very non-compliant.
We need someone to phone in and tell us about Justin.
Oh my God, that'd be great. Let me tell you
The
about this
phone
kid.
lines just start blowing up.
They probably would. And and it was weird, and it was an adjustment, and like I went through that learning process of like, and a disclaimer to anyone who wants to do that as a career, who wants to do treatment, is like it is completely separate from my own recovery. Mm-hmm. Like me going to work is not my recovery. Do I use the principles I've learned in recovery at work? I would at any job. Mm-hmm. But like it's two separate things. And like I went through that where like I wasn't working on myself for like when I was brand new working in treatment, and like I neglected my own personal recovery, and then like it got hard. And I took a break from working in treatment for a while, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back. And a guy that kind of was one of my mentors was like, "You'll know, it'll call you back." And then not too long later, it called, and I've been doing it ever since. And it's cool. Like I love what I do. I really do.
It takes a certain kind of person, I think, to just like really light up with, because it can be very draining.
Very draining.
Very draining. I'm 2 years sober, and I struggle with boundaries a lot, and not necessarily like boundaries in my behaviors with people, but like knowing my limits. Mm-hmm. That's where I really struggle. And so, more recently in my personal life, I've taken on a new role, working in the industry. And yesterday, I just laid on my couch and cried for 2 hours. Why was I crying? I can't tell you. I have no idea, right? But what I can tell you is that like my self-care has been terrible. Like my recovery has been like me, and so like my spirit is suffering by not doing the things that I know that I need to do, And so like when I was done crying, which I don't even know why I was crying, I was like, all right, like I got it. And like I went and worked at Sponsees, and I was like, okay, like I understand what I need to do right now. I got it. And that's just like something that I struggle with, and I know that about myself. I am like I'm such a good alcoholic. Like I'm an all-in kind of person. You put a job in front of me, I'm like, dude, I'm gonna be the best at this. I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm gonna work all day, I don't even need to sleep. Like sleep.
It's for the week.
I know, right?
I can live off Red Bull. It's totally good for me.
Yeah.
It's nourishing. Eat on the road. It's fine. Like I'm not gonna. No negative consequences.
Yeah.
No, I was saying, I think it's really common. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't even have to apply to working in treatment.
Right, and any occupation.
I'm in early recovery. You're going to tell me that if I work 70 hours a week, I'm not going to think about anything besides work for 70 hours a week. Like, it sounds pretty cool. And I feel like that's a really common pitfall for a lot of people in early recovery. I know I've seen it. Yeah. You've definitely seen it. I don't know if you've seen it.
What?
Of people in early recovery overworking.
Oh, just like all in, yeah. I would say that I'm still crazy. I would say that, but like when I first got sober, I was so.
You?
I know, it's hard to believe. But when I first got sober, I was like, I'm like still a fast-paced person. Like I'm really fast, but when I first got sober, I was like, and so now like God always guides like women to me that are just like me to help, and I'm like, oh my God, can you just slow down? I was like, this is what my mentors had to do. Oh my God, I feel so bad for them.
Right. That was the first time I was like trying to mentor somebody. I fully realized what my dad meant when he said, "You're just like me." Like that whole like, oh my God, you're just like me. I got that, and I was like, oof, I put somebody through this. I'm sorry.
So for people who are like, so the show is about like offering resources and education and prevention and letting people know that there's hope, so for people who are like still struggling or active, like what advice do you have to offer to them, or someone that's like yourself that's unsure if recovery is even what they want? Like what would you say to them?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say like reach out to someone. Like even if it's
reach out to Justin.
Reach out to me.
He literally just gave you guys his phone number.
Call me. No judgment at all if you don't want to stop. Like
right.
I don't care. Like that's okay. Like I'm all about meeting someone where they're at, and Like when I got sober, I had no idea if I was even interested in being sober. And like, it's so hard to even imagine when you're first getting sober and like all the stuff is piled up on you from what I did on my last run, and like to imagine actually being able to maintain sobriety for any length of time was unfathomable to me. But like when I started to talk to people that kind of understood and like understood how my head worked and understood like how I operated, like, and I started to trust people and I could talk to them and relate to them, and made it like a little easier and took it day by day. So like if you're struggling, like just reach out and talk to someone. There was, because I had gotten sober and then I'd relapsed for a while, and I would call this guy that I met in meetings, and we would just talk, and he would never even bring up like, hey, you think it's time for you to get sober? We would just talk.
So you see the question for you?
No.
So it says, Justin, who is your biggest influence in getting sober?
Oh, that's a hard question.
Oh, I didn't know if it was the guy that
Yeah,
you're calling.
dude, that's why I thought you segued it.
I thought
That's a good segue. Well done. But yeah, I mean, if I think about this guy, like, because I could call him and I was all messed up, but it was a voice of recovery that, so like when it was time and I knew like I could call that guy again.
I love what you just said. Like, you know, if you don't want to get sober, that's okay. So I remember there was a point before I'd gotten sober where like people in my life were like telling me to go to AA, and I was like, yeah, you can F off. Like, I'm not going anywhere, you know? And when I first got sober, I was so judgmental to people, and I was like, oh, like if they're not sober, nah, you know? And now I'm just like, it's cool, dude, like wherever you're at, I love you. Like whatever you're going through, like who am I to judge you, you know? And I love that you practice that principle.
For sure.
It's really easy for us to forget where we came from.
Yeah.
You know, just having that one person that picked up the phone and was just like, okay, yeah, bud, like, I'm not going to co-sign it, but I'm going to love you. Like, that was huge. And that's what you're doing.
Right.
Whatever, like, who am I to play God in someone's life? You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, my job is to live by principle. That's my job, and it took me, I had a lot of pain in my own life because, like, people weren't behaving the way that I thought that they should, you know?
Yeah.
And it took, like, you know, some people, you know, letting me know very clearly that, like, I don't, it's my job to love people. It's my job to live by these principles. That's my only job that I have every day. Everything else I'm not in control of. My job is to show up and live by these principles. That's it.
Right. And I can't tell you how many times like I've had like people that are close to me that I care about deeply that have like went back out or and like they'll still call me and like I'll still answer that phone, and everything in me wants to be like, come on, dude, like let's get you somewhere. But like I don't want to ruin that chance to be helpful later. And then sometimes, and even recently there, a buddy of mine, it was 2 years later and I got that call. He's like, all right, I think I'm ready.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, wow. I've been waiting for that, you know?
This has been such a long 2 years.
Because like I know for me, if like there was people when I went back out before, they were like, come on, like you need to get sober. What are you doing? And like I didn't.
It's such a turnoff when you're
right.
not ready.
I didn't feel comfortable talking to them when I was ready.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at the same, like we want to make sure we're not enabling someone's behaviors, but you also want to make sure that you're not pushing someone away or causing more harm. And you know, sometimes people just need love.
Right.
That's it. They just like need someone to listen to them or to be there for them. What, Bobby?
No, I'm just thinking back in my own history and how big of a, like,
The show's not that long.
You did the impossible, Jasmine.
Which is?
You shut me up.
You witnessed that, right?
I just
yeah. Okay.
Wow. It's okay.
Oh, this is an excellent question. What do you do when you've been sober for a while and you're not doing good?
That's a good question. And that will happen.
I hit pain.
That will happen, you know? Like, there's plenty of times where all of a sudden other things become more important. Like, life, one of the pitfalls is, like, life can get really good. And when life gets really good, a lot of times I stop doing what helped get it good in the first place. I stop, like, really focusing on recovery as much and just, like, all this other stuff that's in my life now. And, like, the number one thing to do probably when like stuff isn't going so good is number one, get honest with someone about it.
Right.
And that can be hard with, like, and I've had to even do that with some stuff I've been struggling with lately is like, and with over 5 years sober, it's like, I don't want to tell someone like, I haven't been doing good. You know, I have this thing in me that built up that like, oh, I should be all right. Like, but sometimes I'm not all right, you know?
I think that that's so important to like, just because we get sober, like life's not great, you know. Like I'm in a place in my recovery where like I've been struggling. I'm like I've been told like it's time to do some work, you know.
And I honestly respect somebody with time that says that. Though,
Right.
Right. Because if you're telling me that everything's amazing 24/7, I don't believe you. If you're telling me, yeah, I have this much time and I'm struggling, it's like, okay, this guy's real.
Right.
And this is gonna happen, and if it happens to me, I don't have to feel like I can't share about it.
Right.
Like I can't talk to somebody about it. You know, so that's huge.
So we have, for those of you watching, there's the contacts too as well. So Avenues Recovery is at 81 Hall Street in Concord, New Hampshire. Their direct dial, if you want to call the treatment center directly, is 603-513-3234. And we didn't even get a chance to talk about Live Free. Oh my God, we have to have you on another show. Live Free Sober Living is absolutely beautiful. I've been to the Keene location. So there's a Live Free Structured Sober Living, 70 Kelly Street, Manchester, New Hampshire. And that number, if you want to get in contact with anyone for Sober Living, is 877-932-6757. And we'll definitely have to have you on another show because we didn't even get into Live Free, and this one's almost over, you know.
Flies by.
It really does. We get, and you know, I would actually like to applaud you because you didn't say anything inappropriate.
I know, I had nothing to work with. So I was like, I'm just waiting for the like, okay.
You were very well behaved. We had talked about before the show that you might not be, but you were. So you're allowed back for a second one.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, it doesn't really matter. I've been allowed back times. Like that's like done it.
Bobby's been on the show for almost a year now, so obviously we'll let anyone on. It was great having you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
For anybody at home that's watching and struggling, you know, as always, you can always reach out to Bobby or myself, but Justin has really made himself available. You know, he's given you his direct dial. He's given you the contact number for his treatment center. He's given you the contact number for his sober living. So if you're struggling, you know, reach out to him, reach out to anyone. So it's been a good show. Thank you for watching, and we love you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, AKA the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua. Hi, welcome to Exit Team Nashua. My name is Jasmine, and I am your host. Exit Team is a TV show where we take people with real-life experiences with addiction, and we bring them right into your living room. Bobby, very happy you're here today.
I'm happy you're not hitting me.
As always, it's always an honor to be in your presence. And I just want you to know that I really love you. So...
You always say that after you hit me.
Feel love.
I'm excited for today's show.
Me too.
I know. So I get the honor and the privilege of setting up these shows, and so our guest today is Ryan, and Ryan is someone that I've kind of always looked up to in recovery, and someone that I've followed for a little while now. So it's really cool that you're here on this show. It's awesome.
Glad to be here.
Yes, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
What qualifies you to be on the Exit Team show?
That's a good question.
We're going to need more time.
Yeah, I mean, how much time do we have?
It all started in 6th grade.
Yeah, so when I was 10, actually that's kind of where, that's what would probably qualify me as my lived experience in recovery. And to be in recovery, I had to have an active addiction life as well. I actually got sober March 7th of 2008. And after multiple times of being going in and out of treatment and in and out of sobriety, I would go to multiple 12-step programs, and I would put some time together. Most of the time it would be like I would rush into putting external things in place. And that was always really important to me, because I think that it was in active addiction, I was never somebody that put this bright life together and then crashed it all down. Yep. I just never put it together at all. I stole stuff from other people. I never lost anything. I never had anything to lose.
Okay.
So when I would get sober, I would rush around to try to put those things into place, and
which makes sense, because society puts so much emphasis on external things, let people know where you're at. When I know when I first got sober, people kept talking to me about this internal condition. I was like, it doesn't even make sense. I didn't even know what that meant. So.
Well, and I think that was probably one of the more profound things that I had not only learned but I had experienced, was that if I turned around and I stopped looking to try to rush everything on the external to get right inside, that if I just really focused on doing some work myself internally, that most of the stuff that I would put together externally would happen naturally, and it kind of more the way that it was supposed to.
You wouldn't have to steal.
And it would last, right?
It would, of course it would.
Yeah. But that's things that come really, really quick usually don't stay.
No, or you just, it's that when that's the focus, they may stay. You may get them quickly, but then you're moving on to the next thing and the next thing, and eventually that momentum, just I'm gonna wear it out.
These new clothes are gonna make me happy. This car is gonna make me happy.
They're gonna sit in the corner.
Yeah.
They'll get dirty. Rust is gonna eat the car. Moths are gonna eat the clothes, and eventually they'll lose its shine, and I'll be left with this feeling of something's not right. I can only deal with that for so long, and for me, it would always be around 3 months. I'm a short fuse guy. I'm not a long fuse guy.
Okay.
And so I would sit there, and after a while, even though I had all this evidence on the table, I had a very colorful past, and I had a lot of evidence on the table that says that me using or drinking alcohol is a bad idea. And despite all the evidence on the table, at some point in time, my mind would say, it wasn't that bad.
It's gonna be different.
If you could keep it to the weekend. If you could just keep it to the weekend.
You stayed sober for 3 months. You can be a weekend warrior.
Did I make
'Cause
too
you
big
can-
of a deal of this?
You can stop. You can obviously stop.
Yeah.
Alcoholics and drug addicts
Yeah.
can stop.
And so that would run its course every time. I've had periods of time where I've left, 12-step meetings with my family, went out to lunch, relapsed in their presence, the people that I've hurt the most, and stood up from the table, and then would walk out the door and just kind of go on my way for another 2.5 years, and then eventually I would come back to the recovery process. This time, March 7th of 2008, or March 6th of 2008, I attempted to take my own life. I just couldn't imagine my life staying on this planet the way that I was living.
Yeah.
And,
In that vicious cycle,
Yeah.
right?
it's just there was no other way out.
It's always so
No.
painful.
Yeah.
There's just no relief.
Or
from
I
it.
know there's a way.
Yeah.
But I just physically can't stop.
Yeah, and then observing everybody else doing it, and
Yeah.
me not being able to do it,
Yeah.
and disappointing yet another round of people, and another set of failures, and so the next day I woke up from that attempt, and the state of New Hampshire thought it was a good idea that I get sober, which was nice of them.
Yeah, that's kind of chill.
Yeah, so.
Good looks.
Well, and I got walked over to Keystone Hall, which was behind the clock towers.
Right here
Yes.
in Nashua.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, this was, just a little over 11 years ago, and that was really the start of everything. And I don't really know what the difference was. It was just as painful this time as it was last time. So. Really, I think that one of the things that took place was timing. There was somebody that came, and they showed up for free. That was a pivotal kind of like I thought counselors had to because they were paid to. I always thought your family kind of had to because they were obligated because they were your blood.
Yeah.
And this person showed up and started to try to help me for no other reason other than to help me. And that at that point in time stood out to me. There was also a lot more state-funded treatment at the time.
Yeah.
So I spent 45 days in Keystone Hall, and I got sent up to the Southeastern New Hampshire Services. And then
Okay.
at the time, they had a 90-day residential inpatient
Yeah.
that was completely funded by the state. And then I spent 6 months in their really intensive halfway house. And this was probably the most intensive treatment that I'd ever been in.
Yeah.
Best treatment that I'd ever been in.
I went through Southeastern New Hampshire Services when it was like the ARC Crisis Center, and then they had the Turning Point too.
Yep.
And I was able to maintain a year of
Yeah.
sobriety. I mean, I eventually reverted back to old behaviors,
Sure.
so I relapsed. But yeah,
That was, I mean, that I think the biggest thing that especially nowadays that with insurance companies being the way that they are and shortening the days of care. Excuse me, but back then it was next thing I knew I'd been in treatment for 7 months.
right.
And then all of a sudden by the time I graduated I'd been in treatment for 9 months.
And you have a chance.
I have a really
I know.
Yeah.
Insurance companies are like 2 weeks, you're good.
You're good.
You're
It's just
like,
yeah.
the neurotransmitters are still misfiring up there.
I'm still detoxing.
Yeah. No, I'm
Right?
like, oh, detox, you're good. It's like I just took my last sub like 8
Yeah.
hours ago.
And I haven't even stopped thinking about drugs since I got here.
Yeah. No, like but sure, yes, I could go home.
Yep.
I'm gonna be perfectly fine. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that was really, and then I stayed there. I moved out into the Seacoast. Also, part of that time was that I really dove deeply into my personal recovery program. I had done things this time in recovery that I'd never done before. For me personally, I really intensely worked a 12-step program, and really much more than going to 12-step meetings, but really diving deep into the 12-step work itself. And that was something that I hadn't really ever made it too far in. I don't even know that I would really have been too interested. Every time somebody would talk about the things that are contained within the 12-step recovery process, I just would either make fun of somebody or I would make sure that there was a way that I didn't fit into it.
Or like, I don't really have to. I already did that basically.
No, I never made that. I'm not going to do that. That's for other people.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I was a justifier.
No.
I basically did that already.
Yeah, I would be too honest to be able. I just would sit there and say like, this is for sheep. I don't think this is going to be
Right.
For me.
I would
enough.
just character
Yeah.
assassinate everyone in the room.
He's not really happy. He's not really happy.
Oh, I thought everybody was a liar. Somebody
yeah.
would get up and they would say like they've been sober for a year. I'd be like, it's not true. It's not
You're
true.
definitely huffing airplane
Yeah.
blue.
If we had 5 minutes, I could figure out why that's not true and where you're actually not sober. I didn't think that was ever possible. Because just nobody that I grew up with, none of the people that I grew up with, everything revolved around living a lifestyle like that.
Yeah.
So it was to suddenly be around people, even though I've been trying to get sober since I was 17. I would come in the doors and I would look out and I'd think to myself, I don't know that I've ever learned anything.
Yeah.
Like I'd feel like every single time I was here, I was really raw. I didn't want to be near anybody. I disliked everybody. I hated everybody, and I was really left alone. I mean, the first person to reach out to me used to tell me that people used to think I was like an end-stage AIDS patient, that I was dying. And I was like, that's the most offensive thing I think I've ever heard. Somebody, what is that? And he just said everybody would leave you alone. And I used to tell myself a story that nobody wanted to help me. And he said, you used to like snarl at people when they would come over. I'm like, really? And he said, yeah. Wow. Oh, okay.
I mean, it's like, kind of sounds like me.
I don't really have a fair recollection of that time anyway, so if you say so. Yeah. And so I moved out to the seacoast. I stayed up there into a phenomenal recovery community.
The seacoast is great.
There's
There's just something magical that happens out there.
There just really was. I mean, I stayed up there. I got connected to some of the best people that I've ever met in my life. Most of them I'm still connected to this day. And overall, like, it's just you're close to the beach, you're close to the lakes, you're close to the mountains, and it was all things that I started to dive. I just really started to expand. Even outside there's the traditional recovery process. I started to expand out and find out that there's so much out in the world that I just lived. I mean, most of my life had been between Nashua, Lawrence, Lowell, and Lynn, Massachusetts. That's as big as my world was.
Yeah.
And
so,
like for me, like my mental world was even smaller.
Yeah.
So till like, when you were talking and like you were sharing about like how painful like your addiction was, I was thinking about my healing process and like how and I was like, how did I ever like learn about the internal condition? And I remember it was like a feeling, like the awareness that like I was not my mind and like all those painful thoughts, and there's just so much outside of like, there's so much you're talking about, like, your physical area, but like there's just so much outside of you too to connect with.
Yeah, and there's just so much like when you actually like get into and start to expand your world, you realize there's such a huge possibility for your life and you start to expand and touch into these places that you didn't, and it's almost like there's not enough time in the day.
Yeah.
You're like, wait a minute, you do what? That sounds kind of cool. Tell me about that.
It wasn't even a possibility.
No.
It was, I need to do whatever I need to do to keep getting high or drunk.
Yeah.
And like, farthest I'm going to wake up in is Jersey.
Yeah.
You made it far.
That was gonna. Well,
No.
not in CT.
No, I was
that's
like
right.
an hour and a half away from Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And nobody ever wants to wake up in Jersey.
No.
Not even
Yeah.
from Jersey.
Not even people. Bobby, you could really be offending someone right now. Okay. We love you, New Jersey.
Please call. I know you need help.
Just kidding. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the. That really. That's where everything kind of took off for me, and I started going back to school, and I had friends that were always saying you should come get into the treatment field, and so, God, it's going to be right around coming up on 10 years working in the substance abuse field in some way capacity, and I've just learned a ton. Being in it, I've got to work with some amazing people, and I get to serve a population of people that not a lot of people want to sign up for. Why are there not more recovery supports, and there's a lack of people that to offer them is because it's a tough population of people to serve, and so not a lot of people want to sign up for. Yeah, I'm going to work with a really difficult population. Because if you're dealing with a guy like myself, which I'm
Apparently, you were snarling and growling at people.
Yeah, I'm not the best guy in treatment.
I don't think anybody really is the best person in treatment.
I feel like I was a really good person in treatment. Like if they told me to jump this last time around, I didn't even ask them how high. I was jumping as high as I could.
I wasn't really.
Well, we're not surprised.
Yeah. I would course correct well, though, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that. Yeah. That's the piece that I think is important. So when they would show up, and so like the place that I would go into, you would get pulled out of the room, and it was kind of like it was almost like a TC / 12-step place. That's what the way that used to be.
Yeah.
And it was just really it was you'd be in like a community group, and if people weren't towing their weight, they would get pulled out. And so this the way that Southeastern was set up. You had the treatment center, you had the court, you had the jail, and the old folks home, the retirement community.
Yes.
Right? And it's all right there.
Yeah.
And so you'd look out your window and you'd see the jail, and most of us there were mandated, and so you would get pulled out, and the door would close, and you could hear the handcuffs go on somebody.
Yeah.
And all of us that were mandated would sit straight up.
Yep.
And so when they would pull me in the room, and people would get discharged for far less than what some of the stuff. I mean, I would say some of the most wild things.
Yeah.
And everybody in the room would look at me like, and then the door would open. They'd say, "Ryan, can you come with me?" I'd be like, I wonder what this is about. I didn't even have a clue that was offensive.
Yeah.
And they would pull me in the room, and my counselor would say, "You can't talk to people like that." Like, did you not hear them? How would you suggest that I talk to them? And he's like, like this, and he would show me.
Yeah.
And then he'd say, "I expect you to go back into the community and put it in practice," and I would. And come to find out afterward, it was they came to the realization that they didn't think I knew any better, and so that they just had to tell me, and I would go do better. And so which I found extremely, like if I didn't go to a place like that, I don't know that I would have made it anywhere else, and I don't know if anybody would have taken the time to compassionately show me a different way, because I probably wouldn't have figured it out on my own.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was really kind of the piece of that I've always taken with me. And then so finding into treatment, and kind of to your point that you made, which is like people forget, especially people that work in treatment with lived experience, they forget often what they were like. They all of a sudden, the person that's sitting in front of them, their expectation is that they should be where they are today at day 4 or week 2.
They're not.
And they're not. That's just not where they are. And people forget that, and they lose the compassion, they lose the patience, and they have this false expectation that like they're not allowed to show up honestly the way that they are, the person that they bring to the table, and that you have to take the time to kind of help put some of that back together again.
See, I always get hopes up for the kids that are like that when they come in, that are all messed up.
Me too.
Because but seriously, it's like okay, you've hit some pain. B, you're being honest with me. You're not telling me what I want to hear. You're telling me what like you're actually thinking, and it's like cool. I can actually work with this, right? Like I can actually talk to you, and like I don't have to do the workaround.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like all right, cool. You got the honesty part. Let's work on everything else.
Right. Well, and just like so now the honesty comes on the table.
Yep.
What is the honesty? And then helping somebody sort through like what actually needs to change. Maybe what's a different approach? Okay, so this is honest for you, and I understand that. But what's a different way that you could possibly look at that, or bring that to a group setting? Because really, the portion of this is like the taking the recovery portion and putting it into action, and helping somebody kind of show up, or when they walk out the door, be a different person that walked in the door.
Yeah.
I think it's you can listen to people like sound great when they talk, and then you watch what they do, and you're like, did you miss something?
Yeah.
Like, what just happened? And you can see that with people that have been in recovery for a long time.
Yeah.
Same thing. They know all the right things to say, but like when it comes to doing it, They can't get themselves out of a paper bag. And it's just like I think that's the most important part, is to be able to help somebody actually change some of their actions so that their life ends up having a richer quality to it.
Yeah, they could be somebody of integrity, right? Somebody that does what they say. You know,
Absolutely.
does what they do.
There's a question for you. Ryan, who is your biggest influence in getting sober?
Biggest influence in getting sober. I would say that the biggest influence in getting sober, I don't know about, well, as weird as this is to say, my PO.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's not weird at all.
Yeah, I don't think
Okay.
that's weird at all.
So there's two people. I mean, I was already sober, but my first sponsor, Kent, he just saved my life. And then I had my PO, when I went in to turn myself in, he was going to mandate that I serve my maximum sentence, which was 5 years in Concord State Prison. And the worst part is that, to admit this, is that I never had been charged with a felony in my life, but I'd failed at probation for not being able to pass a clean urine, and I would always fail the drug test, and so I spent more time incarcerated over failed drug tests than I ever did over arrests, and I went in and he asked me to serve my maximum sentence, or not asked me, he told me that was what was going to happen. And
Yeah. Hey, you okay with doing 5 years upstate?
So, well, interestingly enough, after the court counselor came in, he had said, you know, like, we'd like to see you actually try to get sober, and
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't want to do that.
I'd rather go to jail.
I'd rather go to prison.
Yeah.
Right.
And so he came in and he took it off the table. And so, and he just said, like, we're going to walk you over. And he did. And then afterward, when I've called to thank him, he's never returned my call.
Do you know what's so cool? So when I first found my way to recovery, I had stayed sober for that year and then I relapsed.
Sure.
But I had a probation officer who mandated me to treatment, and I begged her to send me back to jail because I had gotten so comfortable in jail, and she mandated me to Southeastern. And that's how I found my way to recovery. And like, I stayed sober for that year, and I relapsed, and my relapse was very short, but like, because of that year, I knew right where to go.
Sure.
You know, that's
Yeah.
just really cool that we
Yeah.
have like the exact, almost
Oh, yeah.
the same experience with the like being
Yeah.
mandated to the same
Yeah,
treatment
it
center.
saved my life. Like, I
Yeah.
literally would have chose to go sit there, and who knows. And my rationale to him was, I said, if I go, I'll spend about a little over 3.5 years. I'll max out, and I won't be on probation anymore, and so I won't have to fail with you anymore.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we're not going to do that.
He saved your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's almost like insane thinking or something.
You think?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's super uncommon.
But I thought I deserved to be there.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought it was the best at the time. It was the best place to go. It was after an extreme, what I thought was the solution the night before that didn't work. It was the next best thing that was presented to me.
It's so crazy how cool life gets.
I know. I know.
Like, your best thinking and like what you thought you deserved was to sit in a jail, and like you have like a pretty awesome life from what I see, and like you help a lot of people, and like, I don't know, I'm actually, for those of you, we haven't even talked about this yet, check out people, my shirt, Live Free.
They're everywhere.
Yes, they are. They're a hot commodity if you'd like to get one. What is Live Free?
So Live Free Structured Sober Living got started in 2015, and it was geared toward having a lower cost, a lot more services, and at the time it was an extended care program, and for the folks in the state of New Hampshire, and so that had taken place. That program was in full swing till 2016, where then opened the clinical services that was attached to it, and then as of recently, I've opened a second location that was in Keene, New Hampshire.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and
So beautiful.
It was geared toward to turn around and working with the town of Keene to be able to offer the service. And doing it at a cost that was low enough to the person. Families are burnt out with financially at this point. You know, there's just we're at this place right now where with recidivism into the treatment process, where it's just people are coming and going, and so that there's not a lot of there's not finances left for treatment, and so it was set up so that it would be able to be paid for by the person that's there. And what we've done now is that we've had such success at the program, we've been able to lower the barrier to get in. Yeah, so that
awesome.
it's like, it's half the cost just to get in the door.
Have you been out there?
No.
It's phenomenal. I was blown
Yeah.
away by how
Oh,
nice
Keene?
it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's like,
I'll have to come by.
it truly sets the men up for success, and it's affordable. It's
That's
like,
incredible.
for the services and what's provided there, that's like high-end sober living, and,
Yeah.
and it's at an affordable price
Yeah.
where people can actually
And
afford
that's
to
what there
go.
needs to be more of.
Right.
More affordable sober living.
Yeah.
It's
Because
so beautiful.
I know, at least in my experience, I needed that.
Yeah.
And how great, because I don't think there's a ton of resources in Keene either, is there?
No, there's not much of anything.
There's
Phoenix
the
House.
college.
There's Phoenix House Dublin, Phoenix House Keene, and then you have Brattleboro Retreat that's close by.
Yeah.
You have Cheshire Medical, which is one of they offer one of the doors for the hub and spoke.
Yep.
And
They're great at that hub
yeah.
too. The Keene hub
Oh,
and
yeah.
spoke's
Yep.
great.
There's the Keene Serenity Center, which is an RCO, and that's really kind of what is in Keene itself. But the impressive thing is what the town of Keene itself has done. They've really just rallied around the supports and tried to make it easier and not harder.
That's incredible.
Which is really
Yeah.
which is really cool. And so they, especially with the building that I have, it's a 10,000 square foot facility. It's got 6 2-bedroom apartments. There's only 4 people per apartment, and then it's on-site laundry rooms. There's offices for the staff that's on site, and group rooms. I mean, it's really just a nice. You step out and there's the mountains right there, and then you're a
awesome.
mile out from downtown Keene.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
You
it's
have
a
to
great
go see
it's a
it.
great location.
He can describe how beautiful it is, but it's when you
Yeah.
see it, you really
Nice.
experience how beautiful it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So the show flies by.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about all these things that I had planned, because you're the executive director for Avenues Recovery,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So we'll have to have a second show
Sure.
where we can discuss that. So
A
I
lot
do.
of two-parters.
Huh?
A lot of two-parters lately.
I know. We just the shows are really good. We have
Yeah.
phenomenal guests. So for anyone that's struggling, we have your information up on the screen, but I want you to be able to give people like contact numbers. How do people get a hold of you? Like, what should people do to contact you?
Sure. I mean, they can reach myself, anytime with the direct line to Live Free. It's 877-932-6757. It rings to my phone, and if not to me, it just leaves a voicemail.
Okay.
And I typically always answer that number.
Okay.
And I have a lot, there's a lot of families, a lot of different people that reach out for resources. The majority of the resources are people that reach out for resources are going to end up in other people's facilities.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just important to connect people to where they need to go.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's beautiful.
That's
So,
awesome.
anyone struggling, reach out to Ryan for sure. All of his contact information is that's mine and Bobby's screen. But if you just rewind it a second,
Or them,
or
you
you
know?
Yeah,
reach
you
out
reach
to
out
us.
to any
Yeah,
of
but
us.
we're here every show. This is your show. This is about
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, this is,
Everything's about you.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Absolutely.
guys for watching. The show's been great. Bobby, thank you. I love you and I appreciate you.
You didn't hurt me that time, so it's cool.
Okay.
And also, it ended like 20 seconds ago.
Thanks. Thank you guys. Bye.
You did good.